Hi everyone, this is Dr. Raquel Butler from Integrated Veterinary Therapeutics.
And Sophie Vandenberg from Equine Postulate. And we welcome you to the Equine Functional Posture Podcast, your ultimate source for insights into the influence of functional posture on biomechanics, health, and overall well-being of horses.
Whether you're a seasoned equestrian, an equine professional, or simply a horse enthusiast, this podcast is designed to help you understand the critical aspects of functional posture.
Tune in each week as we discuss practical tips, delve into expert interviews, and explore the latest research in the impact of functional posture on equine anatomy, physiology, movement, and more.
Let's create a world where we empower our horses to be in a mental, emotional, and physical balance. Hi everyone, welcome to today's podcast. It's on intentional postural rehabilitation or exercises. And this is something that Mel Fleming really created awareness for me around. Like I used to do exercises for the sake of doing the exercises, even walking. I remember saying to her one day, well, I'm walking the horse around the paddock and it's part of the rehab. And she's like, well, there's no real value in that unless you walk with intention and awareness about how the horse is using its body and how the horse is kind of connected to its body in that. And part of me was like, oh, but we're still walking, so there's still value in that. And I still believe that. But yeah, if you can get them to walk in a more connected, present, biomechanically correct way, you're going to get more bang for your buck, as per se. So yeah, she really kind of brought this thought process of intentional exercise to my brain, and it really changed the way that I work with my horses. So how are you going today, Soph?
Going very well. I'm looking forward to the conversation because, I've learned so much from you about this topic, and it really allows us to create conversations and have a really deeper connection with the horse we're working with.
Yeah, and intentional, like we had a discussion before, well, what does that even mean, and it's really creating a purpose with the exercises that we're doing. It's both you and your horse being conscious within that, like not just doing something, going through the motions. Like there can be benefits of that, and sometimes that's where a horse needs to begin. I have had horses where bringing them into too much conscious awareness can be overwhelming, and so we've had to just allow them to be where they are and gradually bring them back into their awareness. It's also doing exercises with a deliberate intention, like you kind of know why, the what, why, and how you're doing the exercise. And so therefore it's like you're knowingly doing something. So you're kind of more connected to the exercise yourself. You're more curious about it. You have a greater expansion of awareness around the exercises, and you're just less mechanical about it. And I think that's where I really see the magic happen in my clinics, is like when, I kind of create more intention for the person and for the horse. And sometimes it's a lot about the person, and other times it's a lot about the horse, and sometimes it's both, and sometimes it's, gently creating a conversation. And then how we can kind of utilize that to create change in the body, to create change in the emotional state, to really get the most out of a rehab plan that you're applying, so that you're not, like, I've also met horses who have been in good rehab plans, right? Like I've met kissing spine horses, I've met stifle horses, I've met, horses that have been doing rehab. They've been doing it sometimes for months, and then they come to my clinic and I ask them to do the exercises, and I'm like, they're not doing them. The horse is not doing them in the best posture. They're not doing them with the best awareness. The owner maybe is not, needs to create a deeper level of awareness to see that the horse is actually struggling with the exercise. They're not building up the right muscles in the right areas, because even though they're up to a certain point in their rehab plan, which is a point at which they should be developing more, like, yes, they've all improved, but it's the same with people who've come and done the equine functional posture course who are doing rehab programs. Their outcomes from their rehab programs have significantly improved because they've created this intentional awareness around like how their horse is doing it and what they're observing. And I think it, yeah, like I said, that's where the magic happens.
Definitely. And it asks of us to have an ever expanding awareness as we, stay in the place of curiosity and ask questions, which is why you would call it a conversation, because it's not one-sided anymore. It's not about you doing what I ask you to do because I've asked you to do it and you're just going to kind of orchestrate yourself to do what I've asked of you. We're both in the place where I'm saying, like, can you do this? Can you do it like this? How does it feel? And we have talked about this topic both, in the course, but also just ourselves, when we're talking about, how we would describe it to people. You're really asking your horse to feel into their own body. Like, how does your horse experience being grounded and feeling their body go through an exercise, and also at the same time, how do we notice them? Like, and really notice, like, the small moments of, how do you communicate that is difficult to me? I know you've got a really good example of Jelly, who started stopping during trot work, and you were curious and said, okay, you're stopping when you feel out of balance, and that's actually what you need the best. And that his trajectory in the direction of better quality movement improves exponentially once he's been able to manage himself better, which is what the aim is, to give them more control and more I don't know. It's like being a real operator of your body by choice. Like, I really choose to move this way. I choose to move um, to well, and to feel into that motion as well. So, and that's
Yeah.
why the intentional part of that is what brings about, being purposeful, being conscious and deliberate, and being knowing in the way that you do things together. Um, to reap that last, it's like bridging the gap between just doing something and doing something well to improve.
Yeah. And I mean, we see it in ourselves, like when you go to the gym and you can do 20 squats, but then when you do them a little slower, a little more thinking about, is my glute switching on?
Yeah.
Do I have good form? All of a sudden you can do one. It's kind of like, it's that as well. So it's that kind of physical, neurological connection. I think with the horse too, it's giving the power back to them to have control over their own body, and to also communicate to you when something is challenging. And I think I remember, so with Jelly, when he first started stopping, his two options were continue running on the lunge where he couldn't listen to me. I would be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And he'd just be in this automated trotting, and then it would get faster and faster to the point that he could canter and then just like go so fast that I just couldn't stop him. It was just so dangerous because he, had the propensity to slip over. He was not present at all in those moments. And so it can become quite dangerous, especially if, he never did the same thing when he was being ridden, like he didn't kind of bolt or anything. But anyway, as I gave him back that balance, then there were times under saddle where he would stop. And initially I was like, keep going. And then again, the curiosity, the awareness, what am I doing here? What is my intention with these exercises? Then I would start to think, why does he stop? And so I'd give him a moment, and then see whether he would offer more movement. I would take notice of what I did before, like what exercise was I doing, how much had I done. And it was often when I was working in the sand and I didn't have sand at home. So it was when I would take him into the indoor, that was when he would stop. And so for me, I started to realize, oh, that's when his muscles feel a bit weird, because then often I would take the saddle off and he'd be a little tight. And so I think he was like having little mild tying up episodes. And so he learnt, instead of just keep rushing, which is probably what he would have done, because he knew that, you know, I'm here to do a job, like we have to keep going. He started to stop. And I started to be curious in that, and then, you know, recognize the connection. But I could have easily pushed him on and he would have kept going because he's a good boy. And I've seen this happen a lot of times now in clinics with clients' horses, where they will say to me things like, well, he always picks up his legs for me, or I can get him to do, you know, they'll show me their exercises and the horse is doing them from their perspective. The horse is doing them well. And then I change their level of awareness to say, yeah, but it's not actually lifting up that shoulder, or it has to do it really fast, or he has to do 3 steps, he can't do 1 step. Or actually, just before you got to that pole, the horse turned their head away to kind of indicate they'd like to go that way. But they know that, you know, they have to go this way. So it's like these little subtle cues that the horses are giving you that are often missed, where they're saying, I find this difficult, or I don't feel confident, or I don't feel balanced, or I don't feel stable, or there's lots of reasons why, but the cues are there, but we have trained them to, well, that we're to not to not do that. And you know, I've seen that, and then the owners are like, oh my gosh, like I thought, wow, I didn't realize that was so difficult for my horse. And now I see what you're saying. And then we slow it down, and then we see the anxiety, and we break it down and find where's that point of anxiety. Like, say, an example is, I had a horse in a recent clinic, and she's done heaps of poles with him and he was fine. We slowed it down. His point of anxiety was taking his back legs over the pole. So he'd kind of rush it. And then when we slowed him down, you could see his whole face change. When we slowed it down and asked him, like he'd already had his front legs over, to get his back legs over with awareness and control, that was the most anxiety I saw in him for the whole clinic. And so if we just walked over that pole, we would never have known that there was a problem with that connection. But then bringing his awareness to it, like it just changes the whole nervous system input into that.
Yeah.
And changes the owner's level of awareness. It changes the conversation with the horse feels seen. Then it changes their level of confidence with themselves, because now they have an opportunity to connect with their hind legs and to let go of that fear and realize they can control them. They're okay, they are safe, you know. So if we never do that, then the horse continues throughout life rushing those back legs over the poles, and you never optimize your rehab plan that has poles in it. You never get the best optimal function in that.
Definitely. And like, we can't be perfect. We're like, you're never going to be perfect. And to be honest, I think it's quite taxing sometimes like you were saying, you can't always be in that space. It's taxing for yourself. It can be taxing for them. Sometimes we need to be a bit mindless about going about our business and doing things. But to be in earnest of building our awareness, when and where we can, and doing it in ways with them that, you know, I aim for improvement and to get the most out of these intentional postural rehab exercises. It's a very valuable time and place to be implementing intention and the way that we're doing it with them for the greatest benefit for them and for us.
Yeah, and I can't remember if I've told this story. Have I told the story about the horse that laid down in the clinic? But anyway, it applies to this, right? So there was a big warm blood in the clinic and he was very anxious and he could not slow down and do the one pole. It was too much for him, like just mind blowing, right? So I think it was the second session of the day and it was still day one. And so we brought him in and I said to the owner, don't worry about stopping him at the pole and getting him to acknowledge it. And that's blowing his brain. So, there was a group of poles set up. I think it was 5 in a row. And I said, just walk around the arena and just bring your awareness to yourself, bring your awareness to your horse, see if he can lighten in his feel with you. And so that when you slow, he slows. So you get a little bit of changeability in the gait. And, the first few times he walked over the poles, he whacked them and was unbalanced and, probably there was a bit of anxiety there. And I said, just as you come into the poles, just lift your lead rope a little bit, maintain your connection, let him know you're there for him, he's safe. I can't remember if it was like the 4th time or 3rd time. But anyway, I was watching from a distance of working with some other horses. And then I saw him walk over the poles this one time. And I was like, oh my God, that was so good. Like I just saw he just got it. He didn't hit the poles. He stepped over each pole with awareness and intention. And then he stopped after the pole. So, we've got to allow the horse to stop and go within their own comfort. And so if a horse asks to stop, apart from like, I want to eat the grass over there, that's a different scenario. But if you're working with a horse and they ask to stop, we need to stop. And so the owner stopped. She had really good feel in that moment. She stopped and the horse just went into this deep processing state. And you could see that its whole nervous system recognized something changed in that moment.
Yeah.
It laid down. About 5 minutes later, it laid down. It went to sleep. We had to all just sit around the arena for like 20 minutes while the horse is like fully out, like legs moving, completely completely gone. And then he got up and he did some really big pendiculations, like crazy whole body pendiculations. And he did it with both sides, both back legs. And then he was just like cool as a cucumber after that. Like it changed him in the rest of the clinic. He was a different horse from that moment on. And it was really that intentional exercise. Like we met him where he was at. We, created some connection. We allowed him to move because moving was easier for him than stopping. And he found it. So it's very cool when, it just changes the whole conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just such a deep nervous system integration of something different to stick with. Yeah. And had to be within his space that he could take that in, and staying in there meant that he was open to receiving it, which is the basis of us having the awareness and the curiosity to say, where do I need to be to get the most out of this, or to help you get there?
Yeah, and it also means we have to take away our expectation. I mean, we've done a podcast on, what was it, timeline versus agenda, and that kind of talks about that expectation. And I think it can be challenging with a rehab plan because often you have a step-by-step instruction. But yeah, you have to be willing to kind of adapt that with the horse.
Definitely. And it doesn't need to be as profound a result maybe as that. They're examples that are like really profound, but you can bring intentionality into just about everything, like how you pick up your horse's feet, noticing when they're a bit fatigued. Like in just that example, my horse picks up their feet when I ask them. I often get that result. I say to the horse, like, if I tap very gently, like, do I have to squeeze to convince you that, it's worth picking up your foot, or are you easily able to just transfer to the others? And, how does it feel when you like pull it up and feel like you need to hold the leg up, or can you just let it hang in my hand and it's not a worry? And when I put it down, do you have to kind of like, do you fall into that leg and then have to slam it down to catch yourself, or can you let it nearly straighten and then load it softly? So your ability to be aware of that and then helping them to be aware and slow down, all the small moments add up.
Yeah, definitely. And then, yeah, we have to kind of consider, well, what does it mean to be intentional? Like, how do we do that? And I think the first thing that we have to do, which sometimes is quite uncomfortable for people, is to start with yourself. And, just observe, like, where's your energy at today? Where's your awareness of yourself, like your own physical state, your emotional state, your mental state? Are you able to actually be present in your body? Because if you're not able to be present in your body, then how can you expect your horse to be present in their body? And that's something else that I've worked with Mel Fleming a lot on, is like, when I'm working with the horses in hand, really being aware of my tension, my brace. Like, she'll often be like, just relax your wrist, just breathe a little more. And Tori's the same too, like, just breathe. Where's your posture? Like, where's your tension? How can you let go of your brace? And then as soon as you let go of your brace, the horse is like, oh, thank you. And I mean, Ellie and Jelly now are both like so cued into me, and they're both so aware and thinking, connected in their own brains and their own bodies, that I can often think something and they just do it. Like, when they're truly connected to me, I can think, lift your, and if they can physically do it, I can think, lift your base of your neck, and they will do it. And one time I was playing around and I thought to Jelly, I tried not to move anything, and I thought, canter. And he just like, I didn't say it, and he just popped into canter. And that for him is a big deal, because canter for him it can create a lot of anxiety. So, for him to just feel my intention, my energy, my, yeah, like, conversation, means that I have a connected thinking horse. He couldn't do it the second time, because then he started thinking about, oh, are we going to canter again? So his brain kind of took over. and
Yes.
and I probably also was like, oh, like, can I get it again? And so it's amazing how the more aware we are of their body, and the more aware we are of, like, ourselves, how influential we can be. Like, it's amazing to me with Ellie, I can think, pick up that shoulder, and as long as I'm clear with what that looks like, she will do the exercise better when I have really clear intention than when I use physical aids. So I think that's where, whatever you're asking your horse, you need to be very clear on what you want that exercise to look like. Get a clear image in your mind of, and it can be difficult because it's not always easy to see a horse doing it correctly, but if you can even have just the first parts of it, like, I want you to lift your shoulder when you lift this front leg over, and I'm not worried about your head and neck right now, I just want to see the shoulder lift. And then you can be like, now I want to see it with the head and neck relaxed, or now I want to see 2 steps, or I want to see 1 step and then you step the other foot. Like, the clearer we can be in that exercise, then the horse, and then give the horse time to respond.
Yep.
So don't go, I want you to do it now, because then you're not allowing them to get themselves organized mentally, physically, emotionally. And some horses take 30 seconds to execute initially. If you give them that time, you have created, like, such better neural pathways and such better biomechanical connections.
Yeah. The need to organize your own body sometimes it just takes a moment to process what have you asked of me and tune in, and then decide how I'm going to balance and how I'm going to give it to you. And that comes back again to us being curious and open and thoughtful. And despite holding that intention of like, I want you to move like this, be okay with whatever it ends up being. You're not a puppeteer. You're just making suggestions and seeing what comes of it. So you're not attached to the outcome. It's not going to throw your emotions. And then you can come back in and see what you did have so that you can adjust to improve, or ask again, or reward the try, have a break and ask again. And if your horse is having difficulty asking the question why, like observing it, do you need, are you having a biomechanical challenge? Is this distressing because you have, you're anticipating that it's going to go a certain way? I think that happens especially in the beginning. Like if you're trying something new and you're doing something differently, um, sometimes there's a little bit of apprehension, I'm anticipating it going like this and it's not going like that, or I don't have a positive association about this, so it doesn't look nice. And especially like we're talking about intentional postural rehab, which often looks messy in the beginning anyway. It just is like one step here, oh, we've got to straighten up again, and then we're going to ask for one more step. Like it's not doing 20-meter circles. Like it's literally the opposite direction. Like it's like a squiggly line of different exercises and things. So understanding, asking the question like, why are you having difficulty? And again, come back to yourself. How am I asking the question? And how am I influencing how you're moving? Because there's so many ways that we influence them deeply.
Yeah, and then it's understanding what's your even picture of that exercise, and the steps involved in asking for that, because sometimes we're being very unclear and we don't even realize we're being unclear. And so we've got to kind of maintain that curiosity. And I just want to give another example. So I have a friend who had her horse, and her horse could do everything, like rein back, roll back, turn on the forehand, turn on the hind haunches. Anything she asked, he was like, what do you want me to do? I will do what, like he kind of knew that he had to do whatever she asked him to do. Like he had learned you've got to be responsive and quick and ready to react, but safe and calm. And the only thing at that point that she was having trouble with was the flying change from one side to the other. Other flying change was okay. And then I said, well, if you slow down that turn on the forehand there, what happens? Well, when she slowed it down, he couldn't do it. He couldn't do one step. He couldn't do one step of a haunches, disengaging the haunches without the legs twisting and then losing his balance and having to take 4 steps or whatever. So when we actually broke it down, it was not the flying change, it was all of it. It was her level of awareness of him overall. And I mean, she's changed because of that horse now in the way that she deals with other horses. Her level of awareness is like above most people that I know. Like she has such a different level of awareness and connection with her horses, and there's such a conversation there now between her and her horses. It is so different. Whereas before, we probably would have called it a bit of a dictatorship. Like her horse did what he was asked as quick as he could, in very well behaved manner. But as she changed that conversation, he started to let her know. So like, she would put her saddle on. He'd tell her within 5 minutes whether that saddle was okay or not, just the way he moved his head, or just his willingness to go forward. Like the conversation changed, and I think that's the way we need to go with our horses, is to listen to them more in the conversation and let them have a part in the conversation so that we can really optimize. Well, we can just help them more. We can help them more with their posture. We can help them more when we're rehabbing them. It does require you to be humble, and it also requires you to sometimes not get done what you want to get done, which can be a bit frustrating. And like you said, there's days when I just go out there and do the thing. I'm like, today I'm tired. I don't have the energy much, but I just need to work my horse. And so I just go out and I just do the thing. I just trot them round. I set a timer, I trot them round. I just do walk over the poles. I just do the thing, right? And that's fine. There's days but then there's other days when I was telling you before, like with Ellie, there's a trade-off sometimes because she's on grass, she needs to trot. She needs to exercise to metabolically stimulate her system to counteract the grass that she's on and her weight. I can go out there and I can just trot her. Okay, I can set my timer for 20 minutes, 10 minutes one way, 10 minutes the other way. We walk around the paddock. It's not just lunging like I walk a lot with her. We do straight lines and whatever. I can just do that. Or I can go out there, spend 10 minutes walking, improving her posture, bringing some awareness to her limbs, bringing some awareness to how she's using her body. Look at how she's moving that day. Look at how she's able to do specific exercises. Put her into the trot, observe her trotting, observe how she's trotting, what her biomechanics are, what her willingness is, what her connection is. Is she able to listen? Is she able to stay in her balance? Is she able to stay in her rhythm? Is she able to hold a straight line? I can just be more curious, more observing. I can go, okay, we've done 15 minutes. She did that really well, but in the last 5 minutes, she was showing signs of fatigue, like going quicker, changing head and neck position, falling in on the line. So that's the difference between, just going through the motions and being intentional. And I think that's, how we've got to look at when we're applying any exercises.
Yeah. And of course, then being able to judge, when do I know if my horse is present? And a conversation that sometimes comes up is food, like the horse's relationship with food and how you can bring that in to work and how your horse is going to respond to food as well. And of course, it depends on the horse sometimes. And I know you said, you've seen examples of people doing it well for exercises with food where you don't lose the horse's ability to check in with their own body, but it can be a form of distraction as well. So say if, maybe for carrot stretches where a horse is snatching for the carrot, whether it's because it's difficult or because they're really carrot focused or they just don't actually have a great association with those exercises, it's not a mindful way of going about the way that you're doing your carrot stretches. And so being able to make adaptations so that you can best serve your horse in the way that you're doing those. So whether that's going to look like not doing it with food to see, what does it really look like? If I ask you to bend around softly, what kind of stretch do we actually have? Or finding the underlying reason, why are you so anxious when I bring out the food? And are you trying to distract yourself from this situation and just kind of switch off and just find another reason? Another thing that I always hear people complaining about is grass diving. Horses at grass dive. And one example I can think of is a wonderful session with a bodywork session where after maybe like three visits, we finally got a session where at the end we were doing a couple of poles and there was no grass diving. But it was because the owner had done the work in between, just the soft stuff. She wasn't riding, just the little exercises during her off season. It was in Darwin, so like they have a big off season of riding where people often do that kind of work, and she was in that period. And after, I'd seen her. This was many months apart for a third time. that horse, no grass diving, just with you the whole time. No. And especially when they're very hard to pull up from the ground. That's like, I am totally going to do anything that I can to pitch my head down here and eat grass, despite the fact that I've had grass all day and plenty of hay. I'm not starving by any means. I'm really trying to distract myself.
Yeah, and I think we have to be aware of that kind of use of food to distract themselves. And I mean, Jelly is very food motivated, and he used to be like the biggest monger, like he would just be like food, 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 and I'm just gonna get the food. I don't care if it's hay, carrots, whatever. He was just obsessed, and yeah, he still loves food. But his ability to maintain his mindfulness is so much improved. And I think part of the reason for him loving food was that his body always was a bit uncomfortable. And, when you're dealing with that level of discomfort all the time, like food is a great distraction. And I think the stretches were difficult for him because he was so tight through his fascia. Like he was always itchy. Always itchy. Now he's just normal horse itchy. Like I would try to work on him in a bodywork session, and it was like, oh, he's like, how can I distract myself? He's like, I'll bite the owner. I will itch myself. I will try to snatch grass. Like just exactly what you described. Like, I don't want to be present here right now. It's I don't really hardly remember him just chilling and enjoying the session. He'd be like, massage me here, massage me there, do this, do that. Not just like, and it took a long time for him to become that. Like it was that combination of teaching him to do it without food. And then also, there is a training aspect with food definitely too, in helping them be emotionally regulated around food. But when horses are really snatching, often you've just got to take your awareness out and look at what their body is doing. Look at tension areas, brace areas, how they're standing, how they choose to stand. Take your awareness not just to the food, take your awareness to the rest of their body. And then you might go, I see. When they turn that way and they get really snatchy, that side of their neck does not have a nice curve, or their head tilts and their ears aren't parallel to the ground anymore, or they step with their foot, or something like that. So yeah, it's the more we can expand our awareness and our curiosity, then the more we can kind of help them through those things.
Definitely. So, how can you see if your horse is present? I know we've mentioned them a little bit, but the ability to have a calm response and the ability to think through a situation are really good indicators. And, being able to adapt themselves, to have control, to have balance, and to be aware and present in their physical sense. Like, I'm aware of my body, I'm present in my body, not having to do the things we're just talking about, like run off and be distracted, look to the horizon with like an obsessed fixation to grass dive. You can slow down an exercise and it doesn't sort of send them into an anxious sort of state, and they don't get overly confused. And usually they have the ability to be curious as well in that state. It's like, oh, I'm grounded internally, and now I can look out and be curious about, oh, what's really in front of me. It's like really seeing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like I've done a bit of liberty work, and the liberty stuff that I've done is more about the horse. Like it's not getting the horse to do something specifically. Like they'll follow you, and we have obstacles around, but there's no right or wrong. So if the horse doesn't choose to go over the obstacle, that's fine. It's actually their communication. And what's really interesting in that is how the horse starts to explore different things. Like yeah, and how they'll communicate something they find difficult, and how they'll also offer you sometimes more complex movements that you didn't think were possible for them. You know, like one time Ellie stopped in a box and we hadn't done anything else in the box except asking her to stop and then go. And then she decided, oh, I'm going to back up. So she just, and it was a higher pole behind her. So she very consciously, very awarely, with a lot of awareness, explored that motion. And like, obviously we rewarded that because she was showing curiosity and thought. And another time I was working with Jelly and he really struggles with that right canter, and we tried a couple of times and he just would run off kind of pig rooting, like I can't do it. So we stopped trying and we did something else. I can't remember, but we took all the pressure off. And then I think I was running with him or something, and then he just offered the right canter, you know, in like a lovely, we looked at each other like, that was the right canter, you know. So he just needed to get himself more organized. And I can tell you that if we had have kept asking him, no matter how, he would have increased his level of anxiety. You know, it wouldn't have been what it was. So yeah, it's quite amazing when you promote that level of awareness with the horses, and in also that you let go of the expectations in yourself, like, and just create an intention for good quality motion, good quality posture, create an intention of curiosity, play, yeah, asking them, how can you do this? Like, you show me, instead of always like, you have to do this exercise in this specific way and you cannot stop because you have to do it 10 times. And that's all that the answer is today. And I've certainly done that, right? But I get way better results when I do it with intention and awareness. And it's, yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, how they feel into. I know we've said before the fact that when you see them in that state and they're like, I'm really, really exploring what it feels like to do things in my body, that it is genuinely like an intrinsic motivator for a horse when they have the resources to do so, to go inside and really think about themselves. Like that in itself is it. I don't want to say it has meaning, but it feels interesting, or it feels good, or it feels engaging.
Yeah, I think that creates like, it just, yeah, it creates like that level of connection to themselves.
Yeah.
I was reading a thing the other day about someone whose horse never played with the rear. And then they did some work with them working on different exercises. It wasn't on rearing, like they didn't teach them to rear. They were working on like piaffe or something. And just developing hind end strength and awareness and with presence. And then they said, I don't know what the time frame was here, but they said, so this horse never played with the other horses with rearing. So the other horses would rear, but he didn't. And then after he built up that hind limb strength and confidence in that, then he started to play with it in the paddock with the other
Yeah.
horses. And I think she said she saw him do it the first time, and even he was like, what was that? Like, yeah, like, oh my God, that I've never done that before. And then, you know, over time he's just explored it more and more in play. And so, you know, that's pretty cool. And I think that's where we want to see rehab, whether it's postural or injury, we want to see them explore movement in their own environment. Like if we see horses taking that new posture to their own environment and taking those new movements into their own environment and exploring them themselves, we are doing something right. Like
Yeah.
that's like the biggest tick that we can get, is when we look at them in the paddock and we're like, gosh, you look so much better, or you're like exploring all those movements that I've never seen you explore before, like you're bucking and I've never seen you buck or pig root, or you're rearing and I've never seen you rear. Like it's, yeah, it really creates a different experience for the horse.
Yeah. the spontaneous
exploration.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So what would you say is the benefit of intentional rehab, intentional posture?
Well, number one is it is going to improve your relationship with them, because it becomes that two-sided conversation and you're thinking about one another, and you're going to optimize the exercise. So it really is how you do the exercises, because sometimes they're not different exercises either. Like, it's not magical exercises. There's nothing extra special or just intentional postural exercises aren't a category of their own. It's about the way that you do things. So you're getting the most out of the exercise for the time that you spend on it, through the intentionality of it. And so that your outcome is going to improve long term, and it brings the horse a new dimension of, I suppose, experiencing themselves and you and how they move.
Yeah, and ultimately it actually creates a safer horse.
Yeah.
I've had situations where both Ellie and Jelly have been stuck in things. So one time Jelly was stuck behind the shed, and between the shed and the fence and a tree was like in the middle of that as well. And I went in there and I had to get him to stay connected to me, stay connected to his body. He had to reverse, which is not his favorite thing to do, but he had to reverse around the tree stump. And also he had to then reverse around the corner, which was between a shed and a fence, and there's a sharp edge on the shed. And I'm like picturing all the possible things that can go wrong in that situation, like legs cut up. Anyway, I went in there. I think I took a stick just to help him with his height. I can't remember now if I did or not. But and this was like, I'm super calm. My intention is that, you're going to just like back out of here super calm. And it was perfect. He just like one step, he felt where the tree was. I turned off, no, I didn't take a stick. I turned off the electric fence. I was like, that would be bad if we hit the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I turned off the fence and then I went in there. And then I just directed him around the corner, like, because he knows, I just point at his hind end, he knows how to do travers and stuff. And he did not touch anything. He was like so controlled, so thoughtful, so just listening to me. So it actually helps you in situations like that. So if your horse is stuck in the float, or they're cast in a box, or they've got themselves in an awkward position, if you have done exercises with intention, awareness, connection, conversation, it'll get you out of a sticky situation every day. So yeah, there's really more to it than just rehabilitating their posture, and it just makes them more confident with their own body in every situation. So it's very cool.
Definitely. Yeah, and that point that it's not just, we're talking about in this context, but it's not just for that. Like, when training foals to pick up their feet, for me, the slowest way of doing it yields the best results. And I have tried both ways multiple times, many times. Like, I've tried, like, I want this to be, in the beginning I was like, I want this to be snappy, like you should be good at picking up your feet. And now it's like, the very first thing I start asking for is a weight shift. It's the only thing I look for nearly 2 days. And by the time you have a weight shift, including like catching themselves with the opposite hind,
There's a
going to
lot
the other side,
involved in that.
it's unbelievable, the change and the calmness of them. Like, oh, it actually feels really nice when you stroke my leg nicely, and I can softly go between each side, and it permeates everything that you do,
I
and
think we
improves
need to
everything.
have a podcast on training foals with intention.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an up and coming episode
Yeah,
because it's
stay
very
tuned.
it's very important. So look forward to that one,
Yep.
because it'll be you'll be able to apply it not just to foals, you'll be able to apply it to every horse. But it really takes this intentional postural rehabilitation to another level, and it sets the horses up for life success. So we will do that one. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining myself, Dr. Raquel Butler, and Sophie Vanderberg in today's podcast. enjoy your horse time. Please subscribe to the Equine Functional Posture podcast and share it with your friends so you don't miss our weekly episodes. And give us a 5-star rating so we can share more valuable insights. And we're also always open to podcast suggestions. So send us in any listener requests and we will do them.
Awesome. We'll see you in the next exciting episode.